guys, welcome back to The Bright Side. Macy here, The Bright Side Girl, and today we're doing my November wrap-up. So I am very sorry, I did not physically read enough books to do a separate reading wrap-up and audiobook wrap-up, so we're just combining them all here, and that will just be a more cohesive way to do it. So I was in a major reading slump in November. I burnt myself out reading a ton of Halloween books, and then I got sick on Halloween and it lasted a way longer time than normal, and then I got another sickness on top of that. I think I just had too much stress. That's really the only time I get sick, is if I'm having a lot of stress, and I don't know what about, but it was just kind of a funky month for me. And Jeff and I wound up just kind of staying up and hanging out late at night, which is when I do the most of my reading, and I wasn't in the mood to read. And even the book that I did wind up reading, I feel bad because I think I would have liked it a lot more if I had read it at a different time. So that being said, that's okay. We have months like that. I did great on my audiobook still, so I still consumed a lot of content. I did not catch up on anything, unfortunately, but I think over my slump and very excited about all the holiday reads for December. Check out my December TBR, which will be up here in the cards. It should already be up if you guys want to know what I'm currently trying to read. So the only book that I physically read in November was Aurora Rising. Now let me tell you, I started this in August when I was trying to catch up and I stopped because Halloween was coming up and I just started switching over to fall reads. I really enjoyed the first 100 pages of this so much. This is by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, who wrote the Illuminae series. That's one of my all-time favorite series. I super enjoy their writing style. However, I just was in the funkiest mood, and being sick was making my brain feel all funky, and so I kind of forced myself through this book, but I really don't think it's the fault of the book, and I do plan on rereading this via audiobook before the second book comes out because I actually think that I would love it, but I barely remember things that happen in here. However, I did have a strong connection to our main character, which was kind of interesting, and I kind of thought about her. I just, for some reason, took me forever to read this book, and I feel bad because I don't think it's the fault of the book. So I don't even think that I gave it a rating yet. I'm gonna wait until I reread it because I just didn't read it I don't know, I didn't read it correctly. The second book I physically read, sort of, is Scary Stories for Young Foxes. I actually started this in October and I read half of it and I decided to DNF it temporarily. This is a middle grade book by Christian McKay Heydrich. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's adorable. A mom fox and everything telling scary stories to her young foxes about other foxes. Super cute, but it's very dark. It was way darker than I expected for a middle grade. I personally, I don't have kids, but I don't know if I'd feel comfortable letting my middle grade read something quite so dark. It was bothering me as an adult, and I do think it was really well written and it was really great, and it was definitely very spooky, so it depends on the kid. But I didn't finish this one, but I probably will finish it next year sometime because I really did like it. But yeah, I just decided to DNF it because Christmas time's coming. And then I am halfway through another book that I didn't finish in time for this wrap up, so I did read a little bit more, just not what I was wanting, but that's okay. So here are the audiobooks that I did for November. Now I had a funky audiobook listening month because I was trying to catch up on things. There were 3 main series that I wanted to reread all the books before I read the new books because they weren't clear enough in my brain. So that was the Arc of a Scythe series, the Renegades series, and the Cruel Prince series. So here's how that went. First, before I did that, I finished this one 2 days into the month because I read most of it in October, and this was a reread of The Madman's Daughter. I just wanted to read this around Halloween. I listened to it on audiobook, and our narrator is Lucy Rayner, and I love her. This is one of my all-time favorite books. It's a retelling about the Isle of Dr. Moreau, but Dr. Moreau's daughter. It's spooky. It's got some wonderful twists and turns. It's amazing. There are some trigger warnings in here for animal abuse because they work with animals, to put animals together, create different types of creatures and things. I think it's very mild and it didn't bother me, and I'm pretty sensitive. But if you like spooky gothic horror, this is great. I think it's not too spooky. I think it's perfect. The audiobook is absolutely excellent, so 5 stars. Then I made it through Renegades. This is a super long audiobook. It's 15 hours. I reread this in preparation for Arch Enemies and Supernova. I never got to Arch Enemies last year, even though this was one of my favorite reads, because I wanted to listen to it with Jeff. But we just listen to things way too slowly together and ain't nobody got time for that. So I reread this one via audio. This is narrated by Dan Bittner and Rebecca Solar, who are two of my all-time favorite narrators. I loved it again. I gave it 4 stars the second time around because I didn't love it quite as much, but it might have been because the story was a little too fresh in my brain. So I did wind up starting Arch Enemies, but I probably won't finish it this month, or I won't finish until like January. I'm excited to get to it now that I've kind of refreshed this in my mind because it's been way over a year since I've read it. Then I reread via audiobook Scythe and Thunderhead by Neil Chesterman. This might be my favorite series of all time. We'll see. I didn't quite make it to the toll because Jeff and I are listening to something else, and then we're going to listen to it together. This one I just reread by myself via audiobook. The narrator, I think, is Greg Tremblay, who does an amazing job. You do need to speed him up at least to 1.2, 1.4, because it is kind of a slower start to the book. This is a dystopian, utopian world. I've talked about it a ton. I just think that this is so smart, and it delves into things that you just don't think about, like if we were immortal, because in this world we have discovered how to not die and how to heal from dying and all that kind of stuff. So we have to establish these people that are Scythes that go and kill people to deal with the surplus population. And it talks about all these things that you deal with. If we were immortal, a lot of things change about the way that we behave and the way that we react and the way we fall in love and just all that kind of stuff. And so I love it. Dunderhead made me cry a little bit the second time around. I cannot wait for the toll. I'm like freaking out. But Jeff and I listen to things really slowly together because we only listen when we're together. So got to get through one more book and then I'll do the toll. Probably happen in December. Literally the most exciting book of the year for me. I really hope that I love it. Both of these are 5 stars. And I listened to the second book in the Hitch series by G.K. DeRosa. I listened to the first one of this during Spookathon in October. This is a total fluffy, ridiculous series. It's one of those like serial series, that's what I'm calling them, where they're short, really short, and then they kind of come out like every couple of weeks, and it kind of just keeps you engaged. And I think they're only like 200-page books, and our audiobook's only like 5 hours. This is a young adult series about a girl that becomes a contestant like on a game show like The Bachelorette, but she doesn't know that all of the bachelors are supernatural. So they're like vampires and dragons and like werewolves and like all kinds of crazy stuff. It's ridiculous. It's cheesy. I can't remember the narrator's name, but it'll be right here. I didn't love her, but it's doable because it goes really fast. It's ridiculous and over the top. This book I didn't like quite as much as the first one. The romance part just gets to you after a while because she's like making out with everyone, which doesn't bother me like on The Bachelor. But when you're like hearing about it, you're just like, okay, she just made out with that guy, now she's making out with this guy, like calm down. So I don't know. But if you're looking for something like a reading slump buster, something really fluffy, or you just like cheesy, ridiculous, like slightly fantasy-esque magic books, it's great. I'm gonna read the third one in December. And then the last book that I listened to in November was Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade, narrated by Nick Podell? I can't remember. This is a new fantasy series. This came out just a couple of weeks ago, and it is a twist on The Chosen One. There's like a magical woods, and there is a whole cast of characters and witches and strong heroes that wind up not being able to be heroes, and side characters that wind up trying to help and have to do more than you think. And oh, it's so good. I don't want to tell you guys the main plot twist, but it's so good and it's funny. Like, this is one of the funniest fantasy books I have ever read because of something that happens in here with two best friends and just the way that the characters interact. And our narrator is amazing. He did so good at doing goblins and witches and women and men, and oh, it was so good. It's so good that this is now my most anticipated book for next year. I don't even know if it's coming out next year, the second one, but I need it because it was great. It didn't leave off on like a major cliffhanger, but I just loved being in this world. It was like a journey to complete a task that was prophesized, and it was amazing. I think this is adult, but it definitely had that young adult vibe to it, and it was a great crossover book because it was very appropriate for young adults as well. I am so excited about this book, and I literally heard no one else talking about it. I saw it like on a weird little blurb somewhere, and I wound up just randomly reading it this month, and I'm so happy because it's one of my favorite books of the year. It was excellent. So those are all the things I read and listened to in November. Please let me know what you guys listened to and read in November, and if you loved anything or hated anything, we'll just have a little chat about it down below in the comments. Hopefully December will go a lot better for me. It usually does, despite being really busy. I think December was my best reading month last year, which is kind of shocking. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you are having a great day, and I'll see you guys next time on The Bright Side.